you tweeted about me that time.
Hey, I don't make the lineup. When you first got on the JBP, it was different for me. I enjoyed the pocket that the JBP was at the time.
You know, I didn't like that no.
A Joe Budden podcast guest chastises Flip, revealing what people now think of him. Zaire Franklin, also known as NFL Youngboy, is currently a co-host or someone who was formerly on the network, having hosted a less successful show. Additionally, it tells me a lot that he feels so at ease discussing his dislike for Flip on the show. I found this episode, which debuted last week, to be a little strange. I thought it was good, but they talked about what it meant to stunt for about an hour. It was strange. Nevertheless, let me return to the topic of that episode that I'm attempting to discuss in this video. First of all, Flip was noticeably silent. This is significant since it comes after a demotion.
Shout out to Flip, our good brother here with us in spirit.
Was Flip scheduled to not be there today?
No, we just had too many mics that day, so I asked him to stay home.
Wait, so how does the elimination process goes when you feel like there's too many mics?
No, see, you guys using the wrong terminology. When you say elimination, it makes it like, no, we just had a day scheduled where we didn't need everyone to come in, so we had him stay home. He had Halloween.
I can't help but think, man, I thought you were supposed to be more talkative, come a little bit more prepared, because he's so silent, and it's not getting any better. It's time for you to show up in ways you haven't in the past, since we're reducing the workload. However, it doesn't appear to be the case. The amusing thing is that Flip was so quiet that to participate in the performance, he had to create a problem with Zaire. You dude, what are you making? Hey, why you push everyone? Why are you attempting to force everyone to come up here? Flip's lack of preparation and tendency to wing it are one of the shortcomings of his tenure on the Joe Budden program. He frequently ends up getting into arguments right away, which might lower the spirit of the show. Joe Budden and the other actors were thinking, oh my God, here Flip goes again, making stuff weird just because he has to, find some sort of value to give. And he was making yet another co-host of the show feel uncomfortable. Zaire would then use his love and respect for the Ish and Ice era to justify his disagreement with Flip. However, I would advise Zaire to keep in mind that the show had truly reached its limit with Ish and Ice. Additionally, Joe was clearly carrying a lot on his shoulders. Despite his ability, he frequently had to carry podcasts and segments for extended periods of time. I recall those times, and Joe found it a little unsettling. He would need to conduct a lengthy, solid quiz and encourage Ice and Ish to discuss topics that the fans found amusing. Recall how he would criticize Ish and Ice for their incessantly somber conversations, and how Ice would always turn the conversation into a celebration of being a father. They eventually altered their minds and backed off on that. However, Joe Budden introduced Melissa Ford and Flip because he felt he needed to change up the show. Two performers who wouldn't let a scripted, merely chatting exchange. However, I do wonder why it is so easy for folks to criticize Flip on the show these days. I believe it's because they are aware that Joe's time is running out and that it won't be long before he pulls the trigger. I feel like I missed something the previous time I dissected the Mark Lamont Hill and Flip fight, and some of the points from that episode are aging in really intriguing ways, so I'm gonna do another podcast about it. Zaire's discussion of the community is another important aspect of this episode.
I feel like the JBP community voice is just as strong and heard.
Zaire Franklin now appears to be a huge admirer of Joe, especially the podcast. Additionally, he is a humorous satire on people who pretend to be fans while criticizing them. Flip's performance on the broadcast is the subject of his criticism. However, he claims that the podcast members are mistreated by the fans. Given that Flip is a more talented performer than Zaire will ever be, he may be doing this to Flip because he feels comfortable critiquing him. Not to mention that Joe Budden spent a significant portion of Zaire's time on the network highlighting his attempts to make them feel at ease during his program. I recall how difficult and dry some of those shows were. Therefore, it is illogical for him to comment in any way on those who are far superior to him. Zaire's performance on the Jeff Teague Behen podcast indicates that he is improving. We'll have to wait and see. However, the remainder of the cast begins to discuss the impact of the community, and some of their remarks were intriguing. Imani responds, I can't be mad at it.
Annoying, and there's moments where it's annoying, and there's moments where it might be beneficial to some degree. Whatever you want to spin into, that's what makes this shit. So I can't be mad at it.
Well, to me, that means you are mad at it. Anytime I've been looking at this podcast and someone says I can't be mad at something, it means that it's actually bothering them. And because the podcast values engagement, they have to deal with it. Truth is, fan input is eating the show a lot, specifically members of the regular rank and file employees. So people like Ish, Ice, Imani, they all have issues with the fans, and they've gotten to kind of manage the fans' input. Like Ice reconciles with the fan input by just kind of ignoring it. Ish pretends to ignore it, but everybody knows he'd be DMing people from the community, asking them what's going on in the spaces and so on and so forth. And then you have Imani, who has been in constant fights with people from the community and even threatened to reveal someone's address. So the fan input is just a lot for them to deal with, but because Joe and Ian value it, they really can't say anything about it. Now, like I said earlier in this video, this episode was a little off towards the end because they spent so long talking about what stunting is. And if I were to give a suggestion, I think that they should back up off of those types of takes. Because I was listening, as a listener, I felt like, man, imagine you paying for the Patreon $25 and these guys are talking about how it is to stunt. The right way is to stunt, the way you need to stunt. I think it's fine. Like, I want to be clear. I think it's completely okay. It's just simply the sheer amount of time they stood on it that I felt was a little bit off-putting. And it comes across like Joe was just trying to make the show longer. And I think that's one of his deepest flaws, is that he puts a deep value on making the podcast really long. And you can tell the rest of the cast is often like, why does the pod have to be this long? We've broke everything down, and you're just keeping us here to keep us here. But only time will tell if they can kind of manage things, because I feel like Joe is testing things out, right? As there have been episodes over the last few weeks that have been short, but then there have been episodes over the last few weeks that have been really long. So he's trying to find that sweet spot. So to summarize this video, Flip was called out by a guest, Zaya Franklin, for his contribution to the show, and he was very quiet, which to me means that we might be seeing some fireworks real soon from Flip and Joe Budden. As if he's getting demoted and he's still underperforming, the next level is some type of suspension. And once you start getting suspended from a show that you only appear on once a week, then the audience will start to not miss you and envision a world without your presence. Let me know what you think about this episode. We will have to see how the podcast members deal with the fan community for the rest of 2025, as Joe Budden will invest heavily in his fan community. I mean, you're seeing people from the JB TV community appear on Joe Budden's network. So that's not going to end anytime soon. Make sure you tap in with me on Twitter. I have a Patreon with over 300 pieces of content that are really engaging. And if you want to learn more about the fabric of the Joe Budden podcast, or Rory and Mal, or the endless Twitter Spaces beefs that have been sprouting up recently, I suggest you just go and binge. I know Patreon, I know $5 is not anything. It's a lot. Like, trust me, I know that. So if you don't want to subscribe, I'm completely okay with it. I'm not one of those people like, yo, you need to subscribe to support me. I remember when I got Joe's Patreon thinking like it was the stupidest thing. Why am I doing that? But sometimes if you want to learn more about something, you can just binge it and then just quit it. I have no problem with people doing that. If you don't like Patreon, that's fine as well. All right, y'all.